Coordination and cooperation as the key to lasting and successful disaster relief operations was at the center of the first day of the third annual HOPEFOR Initiative Conference held in the Dominican Republic, which saw government leaders, military officials, and high-level representatives from civil and humanitarian agencies come together to discuss how to optimize global disaster risk management. Against the breathtaking backdrop of Punta Cana, the summit was kicked off with a welcome, where the international guests were treated to the best of the island's rich culture. Early next morning, the high-level discussion opened with the arrival of Dominican President Danilo Medina, Deputy Prime Minister of Turkey Basir Adalay, and Director of the International Development Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Qatar, Ahmed bin Muhammad al-Mariki, governments who stood at the base of the HOPEFOR initiative and remain at the forefront of this very present issue.
Todos hemos corrido en ocasiones de manera apresurada a ayudar a un vecino golpeado por una catástrofe o hemos sido ayudados en momentos de necesidad. Sin embargo, para que en el futuro esta asistencia mutua sea aún más efectiva, debemos transformar esa solidaridad y voluntad de apoyo en coordinación y preparación. Debemos asegurar que ese amor a nuestro prójimo se transforme en una respuesta eficiente, rápida y oportuna para quienes ven sus vidas en peligro.
Natural disasters have become an important issue that all governments have to deal with. We need to work in alleviation of risks. We need to work together in managing natural disasters better, and we need to do this all together.
No doubt the coordination between the military and civilian authorities to face and respond to disasters requires more assets and more capabilities. This cannot be achieved except with the exchange of experiences and informations and between and the involvement of experts in all the relief work.
In the light of the recent devastating typhoon Haiyan that caused great suffering in the Philippines, the HOPEFOR Initiative organizers requested a minute of silence in respect for the victims. The president of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly supported the initiative through a message presented by Ambassador Francis Lorenzo.
On a global level, discussions are on the way to develop a new post-2015 framework for disaster reductions as a follow-up to the HOPE Framework for Action 2005-2015.
Following the successful summits in Qatar in 2011 and Turkey in 2012, this year's conference underscored the need for a comprehensive framework unifying the many rescue operations that come into play when disaster strikes. As natural disasters continue to rip through countries and uproot societies, the increasing amount of military and civil defense resources allocated to the aftermath of major catastrophes forces the international community to find ways to optimize emergency response systems.
We need to emphasize emergency preparedness, anticipation, and early action. We need to look at funding based on risk, identifying communities and areas most at risk and supporting them to prevent and manage rather than supplies.
Following the first round of discussions, the governments of the Dominican Republic and Turkey sealed their promise of cooperation by signing a memorandum of understanding.
Muchísimas gracias.
As of this very minute, we now shift from planning and programming to implementation. We should not limit ourselves to holding annual conferences. It is high time for us to start training our personnel with the necessary education required at the regional, national, and global levels.
After the conclusion of the opening session, President Medina invited chief delegates to the stunning Dominican white sandy beach for a picture together with the government leaders of the 3 founding countries of the HOPEFOR initiative. During the second part of the conference, delegations from all over the world participated in interactive panel discussions, where government representatives and experts in field operations, civil-military coordination, and disaster management from organizations such as OCHA, the Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, among others, shared their views on what is needed to facilitate cooperation between aid relief providers for an optimal outcome in disaster response.
It is very important in in terms of concrete response to analyze each situation, come up with the needs and the gaps, and then respond accordingly. And then HOPEFOR in that can really help by sharing this information and the expertise already learned and gathered.
Certainly developed countries have a lot to learn in terms of disaster response and preparedness from other regions of the world. Whether this initiative becomes more inclusive, more global, whether it tries to increase participation of countries from other developing regions is also important.
Participating delegates were inspired by the panelists and eager to get their agencies involved in the development of the initiative.
Countries must continue to have dialogues at all levels, because it isn't just the directors of the national systems. Those you want them talking to their neighbors and their counterparts in all the countries, because they're the ones who are going to coordinate if there's an event. But you want high-level leaders, as you see here, constantly looking at that they understand what the risks are in their countries and in their regions, and putting resources behind that.
The three conferences were extremely important to shape the idea, to understand where the conference or where the initiative is heading. And now is the question of saying, well, with the next disaster, what are we concretely going to do?
Delegations will continue their participation in the summit tomorrow, with workshops, sharing sessions, and an action plan for the future of the initiative.